Hey, what's going on, guys? Goose here, man, and coming back at you with the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, ring that notification bell and give the video a thumbs up if you please. All right, so this video is going to be about the Oregon Ducks, previewing their schedule for 2020. Hopefully, there is a college football season, but we had some news out from California saying that they're going to shift to online classes. So interesting to see what happens with that out there over there in California. Could be doomed for the college football season. So Oregon in the 2019 season, as they won the Pac-12, won the Rose Bowl, they had a chance the late in the season to maybe get in that number 4 spot, but they lost a late game in the season to Arizona State on the road. So really hurt their chances of maybe, because I think if they had been in one loss and Oklahoma with one loss, I think that Oregon probably would have been the number 4 team in the playoffs. But of course, they got to replace Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is going to the NFL as he came back for his senior year last year, and successful year for him. Successful year for him. Won the Pac-12, won the Rose Bowl, and his top 5 pick. Went to the Chargers, went to the 6th pick. I think he was 6th with the Chargers, right? So anyway, so top pick in the NFL draft. So they got to replace him. Palaszczuk looks like he's going to be the guy for the Oregon Ducks. They still have C.J. Vardell, running back, coming back. So they do have some good. They do have some players coming back that's talented. They lost some of the offensive line, but if you look at the offensive line, it's upperclassmen. It's not like all freshmen and sophomores. So there's some upperclassmen players that have gotten some playing time. So, but we'll go over their 2020 schedule as is. Hopefully, we have the season. But all right. So first, they have a home game against North Dakota State. Now, this is a very intriguing matchup. I'm not saying North Dakota State's going to win this football game, but North Dakota State is a very, very good football team at the FCS level. I mean, they're dominant. I mean, they're the best. They're undeniably they're the best team in the FCS, as they've won what, 8 championships in 9 years, something like that at the FCS level. They're a good team. They're a good team. Uh, they probably will play Oregon tough, especially for a half. But I wouldn't sleep. I mean, I wouldn't if I was Oregon. I'm sure the Oregon coaching staff will not have them sleeping on this team because everybody knows about North Dakota State. Everybody knows about them. They're not going to sneak up on you. All right, next on the list is they play the Ohio State Buckeyes, and this guy and news came out a few weeks ago, maybe within the last week, that Oregon said that this game would probably more than likely be played without fans if it goes on as scheduled, and that's upsetting because Oregon has a very very good home crowd, and seeing this game with fans would just have been a real treat. Hopefully we get to see the game. But they play Ohio State, as Ohio State, of course, won the Big Ten last year, went to the playoffs, lost to Clemson in the playoffs. So Ohio State, they're returning their quarterback in Justin Fields. So Ohio State's going to be very very good next year. All right, next they got to play the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. As Hawaii played 15 games. They were 10-5 last year. It's amazing how they weren't in the playoffs and they played 15 games. Well, because of course they're playing in Hawaii, they get exemptions and they can add a game or two. So all right, so Hawaii 10-5. So another game that I know Hawaii's probably not going to put much of a challenge against Oregon, but like for the conference that Hawaii plays in, they're decent. All right, then now they get to their Pac-12 schedule. As the rest of their games are going to be against Pac-12 opponents. As we got first on the list at Colorado. As Colorado finished 5-7 last year, of course they lost their coach. I mean, they had a new coach last year, Mel Tucker, and then he went off to Michigan State. So after 1 year, he left and went to Michigan State. Just don't understand how Colorado. That's one team I don't understand why they're just not. They should be better than what they have been in the past. I don't know, 20 years seems like. All right, then they have a home game against Washington. Washington finished 8-5 last season. Washington getting a new head coach as Chris Peterson stepped down, retired. Surprisingly, especially in my eyes, I thought he would coach a little bit longer. I thought he would coach a little bit longer. No, he brought up Roy. He no brought up Boise State from the ashes, from the ground up, really. As he made Boise State to what they are still right now. And he did a decent job at Washington. So then he got a home game against California. California finished 8-5 last season. So it's a road game for the Oregon Ducks. All right, next on the list is we have the Stanford Cardinals. Stanford Cardinal finished 4-8 last season. Is David Shaw looks like Stanford. You know, they had that run where they were winning. Seemed like they were winning 10 games a year, and especially when Harbaugh was there and David Shaw took over. But it seems like Stanford, I don't know, they seem like they just don't hear much about them anymore. They were 4-8 last season. Tough season there for the Cardinal last season. Next they got on the list is the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona, this is a road game for the Oregon Ducks. Arizona finished 4-8 last season. Let's see. And let's see what we got next. We got USC Trojans home game, 2 back-to-back home games. USC is finished 8-5 last season. This is another big year for Clay Helton. You know, I'm surprised USC kept Clay Helton last season, but big year for Clay Helton. Then they got Arizona State. Arizona State finished 8-5 last season when they had that big win against Oregon that kept Oregon out of the playoffs. I think Oregon would have been 4 over Oklahoma if they had beaten Arizona State, and of course if they had gone on and beaten Utah in the Pac-12 title game, which they did. So, all right, then they close out the season with 2 road games at Washington State and then at Oregon State. Washington State finished 6-7 last season. As Washington State they're looking for new coaches. Mike Leach went on and he moved on to Mississippi State. So we're going to see what Washington State doing. They're just historically Washington State's not been a good football team, but they've had years where they've done well, but for the most part they're just an average football team. And then they got to close out the season, they got their rivalry game against Oregon State. Oregon State finished 5-7 last year. So that's all in all. This is all in all as the schedule shapes out for Oregon. It's a very favorable schedule outside of the game against Ohio State. I mean, they can probably win all these games with that one. And if they go 11-1 and go on and win the Pac-12 again, I mean, you would have to put Oregon maybe in that spot in the playoffs, depending upon what happens. Because Clemson's going to be there, Ohio State's probably going to be there, SEC team's going to be there. So who's going to be the 4th team? Is it going to be a team like the Big 12, Pac-12? That remains to be seen. So if Oregon runs the table and they go 11-1 with that one loss against Ohio State, and they go and win the Pac-12 championship, I mean, I think you would have to really look at Oregon hard at that number 4 spot in the playoffs if that happens. But hopefully we have a football season. Outside of Ohio State, what kind of hiccups on the schedule? I mean, if you look at this, it's not really many, because you got road games against Colorado, road games against Cal, road against Arizona, Washington State, Oregon State. I mean, there's not that trap game that just comes out at you and says, "Hey, man, this is a trap game staring you right in the face." I don't see it. I mean, maybe North Dakota State just to start the year because it's the first game of the year. I would call it a trap game, but it's a game that Oregon might play sloppy, but I don't really see it, but you never know. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. What is Oregon's schedule going to be for the 2020 football season? I think they're going to run it. I think they're going to run the table outside of the Ohio State game. I think Ohio State is a little better, much more seasoned quarterback for the Buckeyes. So it give me 11-1 for the Ducks in the regular season, and we'll see if that gets them. That would get them to the Pac-12 title game. because they'd be undefeated in their division. So let me know what you guys think. How's Oregon going to shape up in 2020? I see 11-1 and very good chance to make the playoffs for 2020. Have a great one, and I'll talk to you next time.